1817, on a quiet farm in Tennessee, a family began experiencing something they could not explain. It started with sounds, knocking, scratching, footsteps where no one stood. At first, they ignored it, but soon, the presence began to speak. And what it said would turn their home into one of the most terrifying cases in American history. The farm belonged to John Bell, a respected farmer, a man known in the community for his discipline and quiet nature. Living with him were his wife and their children. To anyone passing by, their life appeared ordinary, peaceful, predictable. But something had already begun to change. The Bell farm sat on open land, bordered by dense forest. At night, the silence stretched endlessly, broken only by the wind and the distant sounds of wildlife. But one evening, that silence was interrupted. It began with a knock, soft at first, almost unnoticeable. Then again, louder, more deliberate. John Bell checked the door, but no one was there. Only darkness and the feeling that something had been watching. That night, the sounds returned, but this time, they came from inside the house, scratching, moving along the walls, as if something unseen was crawling just beneath the surface. The children heard it too. Whispers in the dark, faint sounds near their beds, footsteps crossing the floor when no one was awake. Fear slowly replaced sleep, and the house began to feel different. Objects began to shift, small things at first. A chair slightly out of place, a door left open, things no one could explain, but enough to make one thing clear: they were no longer alone. One evening, John Bell noticed something in the field, a figure, low to the ground, its shape unclear, its movement unnatural. When he approached, it vanished without a sound. The sounds became louder, more frequent, more deliberate. It was no longer random. It was intentional, as if something was trying to be noticed, trying to be heard, trying to be known. By now, the family understood something was wrong. This was not imagination. This was not coincidence. Something was inside their home, something they could not see, but something that was becoming stronger every night. The knocking did not stop, but it changed. It became rhythmic, intentional, almost as if it were trying to form something, a pattern, a message, something more than just noise. Then, it happened. A whisper, faint, barely audible, a voice that did not belong to anyone in the house. It came from the darkness, from the walls, from everywhere at once. At first, the words were unclear, broken, distorted, as if the voice was learning how to speak, learning how to form language, learning how to be heard. Night after night, the voice became stronger, clearer, more controlled, until finally it spoke in full sentences. And when it did, it addressed them directly. The voice knew things, names, details, personal thoughts. It called out to members of the family, individually, as if it had been watching them. For a long time, the family could no longer deny it. This was not sound. This was not imagination. This was something real, something aware, and something that had chosen to reveal itself. John Bell tried to speak back. He asked questions, simple ones at first, and to his shock, the voice responded, clearly, intentionally, as if it had been waiting for this moment. When asked who it was, the voice answered, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with certainty. It claimed to be a spirit, one with purpose, one that had come to the Bell family for a reason. Over time, the voice gave itself a name, Kate. It spoke as if it had always existed, as if it belonged there, and as if its presence was only just beginning. After the voice appeared, everything changed. The sounds grew louder, The presence grew stronger, and the house no longer felt like a home. It felt like something else, something controlled, something watched, something claimed. At first, the presence only spoke, but soon it began to interact. One night, a soft pressure was felt, a touch, cold, unseen, but undeniably real. The touches became stronger, more deliberate, pulling at blankets, grabbing at clothing, moving with intention. The entity was no longer just a voice. It was something else, something that could act. Among the family, one person became the focus, Betsy Bell, the youngest daughter. The entity spoke to her more, stayed near her longer, watched her, and then it began to hurt her. Without warning, the attacks began. Sharp, sudden, unseen strikes that left no visible source. But the pain was real, and the fear only grew stronger. The family could do nothing. They watched, helpless, as the unseen force tormented Betsy, calling out, taunting, striking, and always remaining just out of sight. And then it laughed, a voice filled with something unnatural, mocking, enjoying what it was doing, as if the fear itself was part of its purpose. Sleep became impossible. The attacks came at night. Again and again, the house echoed with fear, with voices, with movement. There was no escape, not even in silence. Soon, the entity turned its attention to John Bell, the head of the family, the man who had tried to confront it. The voice changed when it spoke to him, colder, sharper, more focused. The attacks became more personal, more direct. The entity spoke to him differently, as if it had a reason, as if it had come for him specifically. By now it was clear. This was not just a haunting. This was something else, something with intention, something with purpose, and something that had taken control of their home. At first, the Bell family kept it secret. But something like this cannot stay hidden. Whispers spread through the nearby town. Stories of voices, of attacks, of something living inside the Bell home. And soon, people began to come. Neighbors arrived cautiously, unsure of what they would find. They expected exaggeration, fear, imagination. But what they experienced was something else entirely. At first, there was silence. Then the voice returned, clear, confident, speaking in full sentences, not just to the family, but to the visitors. The entity answered questions, engaged in conversation. It responded intelligently, quickly, sometimes even before the question was fully asked. And the most disturbing part was that there was no body, no form, nothing visible at all. It knew things, details about people it had never met, events from distant places, secrets no one had spoken aloud. The more it spoke, the more impossible it became to ignore. The voice was not random. It had a personality. It joked, it argued, it mocked, it chose who to speak to and how, as if it were not just present, but aware. Soon, everyone began calling it by the name it had given itself. Kate, the Bell Witch. And the story began to grow beyond the farm. What had once been private was now public. Visitors came from miles away, some curious, some skeptical, some afraid, but few left without experiencing something they could not explain. Some came to challenge it, to prove it was a trick, a lie, an illusion. But when they spoke, the voice answered, and their confidence quickly disappeared. The Bell home was no longer just a house. It had become something else, a place people spoke about in hushed tones, a place where something unseen could speak, think, and act. And the more people came, the stronger it seemed to become. As the days passed, something began to change. The entity's voice became more focused, less playful, more deliberate. It was no longer just interacting, it was revealing intention. A among everyone in the house, one name was spoken more than any other: John Bell. The entity returned to him again and again, calling him out, watching him, following him. When the entity spoke to others, its tone varied, but with John Bell, it was different. Colder, sharper, filled with something deeper, something personal. Then one night, the entity made a statement, clear, direct. It claimed it had come for a reason, and that reason was John Bell. The voice began to speak of someone else, a name from the past. Kate Batts, a woman connected to the Bell family, and according to the entity, a reason for its presence. The entity spoke as if it carried a grudge, as if something had happened long ago, something unresolved, something that had brought it back to the land, back to the house, back to John Bell. As time passed, John Bell began to change. His strength faded, his health declined, slowly, unexplained, as if something was affecting him from within or from around him. The voice did not hide it. It spoke openly. It claimed responsibility. It said it was the cause, and that what was happening was not an accident. The fear inside the house changed. It was no longer sudden, no longer chaotic. It became something else, a slow realization that this was leading somewhere, something inevitable. By now, the truth was becoming clear. This was not just a haunting. This was not random. This was something with purpose, and that purpose was not finished yet. John Bell's condition worsened. Day by day, his strength faded. Simple tasks became difficult. Even speaking began to strain him, and no one could explain why. The house changed again, the noise less frequent, the chaos reduced, but the silence that replaced it felt heavier, more deliberate, as if something was waiting. Even as everything else slowed, the voice remained clear, present, watching. It spoke less, but when it did, its words carried weight. The entity began making statements, not random, not playful, but warnings, predictions, hints of something approaching, something final. The Bell family could do nothing. They waited, watched, listened, each moment filled with uncertainty, each night heavier than the last. The voice spoke to John Bell again, directly, quietly, as if there was nothing left to hide, nothing left to explain. Only something left to finish. Then for a brief moment, everything stopped. No sounds, no voice, no movement, only silence. The kind of silence that feels unnatural. On the final night, the house felt different, heavier, colder, as if something had reached its end, or was about to. That night, John Bell passed away. The cause never fully explained, but what followed made the moment even more unsettling. Shortly after, the voice returned, and this time it spoke clearly. It claimed responsibility, as if what had happened had been its intention all along. After John Bell's death, the voice did not disappear. Instead, it spoke again. Calm, certain, it claimed responsibility, as if everything had unfolded exactly as intended. For a short time, the entity remained, speaking less, but still there, still aware, still watching, as if deciding what would come next. Then, without warning, it announced it would leave, not forever, but for a time, as if its purpose had been fulfilled. After it left, the house became quiet. No knocking, no voice, no movement, only silence. But this silence felt different, not peaceful, but empty. The Bell family remained, but nothing felt the same. The house was still standing, the land unchanged, but the feeling had shifted, permanently. News of what had happened spread far beyond the farm, across towns, across states. People told the story again and again, each version adding to the mystery. Those who had visited the house never forgot what they experienced. The voice, the presence, The feeling of something unseen, watching, listening, waiting. Over time, the story became more than an event. It became a legend, a story passed through generations, a name remembered long after the house grew quiet. The Bell Witch. Today, the land still exists, quiet, unchanged. But for those who know the story, it never feels completely empty. What was the Bell Witch? A spirit? A presence? Something else entirely? No one knows, and perhaps no one ever will. But one thing remains certain. Something was there. Something spoke, something acted, and something left, only after its purpose was complete. Some stories fade with time, others remain. Not because they are proven, but because they are felt. And if something like this could happen once, could it happen again? Somewhere, in the quiet fields of Tennessee, the story still lingers, and perhaps so does something else. If you enjoy disturbing true stories and unexplained mysteries, follow this channel, because every week we uncover cases that challenge what we believe is real. And trust me, the next story might be even more terrifying.